Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside the Birds TV with Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, presented by DraftKings. Now, normally you hear Greg Cosell on with us on our Inside the Birds pregame live, presented by DraftKings on Sundays as we are breaking down the Eagles game. But with the news of the quarterback change from Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts, we wanted to have Greg join us a little early just to reflect, go back a little bit. Greg, we know how much you get into the tape, and we wanted to go through some of Jalen Hurts' tape and talk about what you see and maybe what we expect out of him now that he's the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. You got your notes? You ready to go?
I do have my notes. So do you want to talk about what I expect from him this week or what I expect from him in general?
Oh, traits. We'll get into the traits and his tape and what kind of quarterback you think he could be at this level and how you think they might use him.
Right.
Yeah, so we'll get into all that. Before that, I want to remind everybody to download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code ITB for a special offer when you sign up. That's code ITB for a special offer when you sign up only at DraftKings Sportsbook. So, actually, we're going to save a lot of stuff for the pregame, but I am curious about your big picture view of what you saw from Jalen in the second half of the Packers.
Oh, you mean in the game itself?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it would be what I expected. I think he came in. I think that I expected him to run around, which he did, and that always gets people excited when a quarterback that has mobility moves around and runs. He basically looked at his first read and then took off. I thought the throw he made to Reagor was a really good throw. That was a blitz on that play. I thought Sanders missed his blitz pickup assignment. Green got in clean. But that's a timing spot throw, so a second-level defender is not going to get there. And he didn't get there, and I thought Hurts made a really good throw. I was actually more impressed with Reagor on that play because Reagor used his right arm really effectively to push off on King within the 5-yard area and create separation and get on top of King. But it was an excellent throw, dropped it right in the bucket. So that was a really good throw. The touchdown was obviously a good throw, and it ended up being a good result. But that was a classic case of what Hurts did pretty much throughout, is that he never planted his back foot and left the pocket immediately and moved to his right. And he didn't need to do that, but he did it, and it ended up being a good result. But he's certainly a guy that has mobility and can make plays outside of structure.
Greg, reading your notes, and I do remember seeing this during Senior Bowl week with him, you talk about how he's an elongated delivery with a bit of a windup that slowed his delivery and minimized his arm strength. What did you see specifically last year that would give you that impression that maybe over time, maybe they need to shorten up, or that's one thing to keep an eye on with his delivery, which could be an issue at this level?
It's probably something they've worked on a bit because I didn't think it was as extreme in just the number of snaps he played this week. So it's probably something that they have worked on. It's always difficult when a quarterback plays in such a highly schemed offense in college. And so many of these offenses in college are so highly schemed. Now, a lot of NFL offenses are more so than ever before because this is what the college game is sending to the NFL. And if you want quarterbacks to play relatively early, and this does not necessarily relate to Hurts at the moment, I mean, it does at the moment, but it didn't when he was drafted. But if you want quarterbacks to play early, you try to put them in systems to some degree that they're familiar with so they can have some kind of success early on. You don't want to teach a quarterback a whole new way of playing when he spent the last 10 years growing up playing a certain way. So a lot of college offenses are really highly schemed. So Hurts is used to that. There were defined throws, predetermined throws. They played to his strengths as a runner at Oklahoma, clearly. I did not see him as a truly natural passer. You mentioned the tendency to lengthen his delivery and slow down his arm speed. He did that when he was pressured in college. We'll see how that plays out as he plays more. And so I had the question in my own mind. And again, I always think about questions, guys. When I evaluate a player, I rarely say, this is what he is, this is all he can be, or or he's good or he stinks, because there's so many variables. Adam, you've known me for a long time. I don't do that. A lot of people do because it makes for a bold take and a controversial take. But, I've been doing this a long time. I have been very fortunate in my career to learn from some really smart people. And there's so many variables involved. So I don't say that a guy, oh, he stinks, he can't play, or he's going to be great. I don't talk like that because you never know. So when I did my evaluation, as you guys saw, I said to myself, okay, what can he be in the NFL? Will people see him along the lines of a Lamar Jackson, where you really want to build a run game offense first and then have the pass game work off that? Will people see him as someone who can become Dak Prescott? Because it's easy to look at Dak Prescott's success and say, oh, everybody knew that. No one knew that, Adam, as you remember.
It's a fourth-round pick, so they clearly didn't know it.
Right, he was a fourth-round pick that more people than not had questions about. And probably due to his work ethic, his understanding, his smarts, he ended up being able to play his first year and be successful. And we know that Dak is on his way to being maybe a special player, assuming he can come back from injury. So I kind of wasn't sure where Hurts would fit. And I made the point that coaching would be absolutely critical because number one, you have to decide what you think he is. And number two, then you have to coach him accordingly.
Greg, a lot of the people a lot of quarterbacks that come from highly schemed offenses in college, you hear personnel people or analysts will call them a one read and go type of player. Is that what you saw from Jalen in college?
Predominantly, but you have to understand, there's a lot of that in the NFL too. Right. People like it, it's like receivers. People, and Adam knows this because he goes to the Senior Bowl and he talks to scouts and he knows scouts. You hear people say, well, he doesn't want a full route tree. That's a meaningless comment. Yeah, that's a totally meaningless comment for the most part. The one read stuff, sure. Does your quarterback in the NFL at some point have to have a sense of the defense and understand that, hey, I have to learn how to see the field? Sure, of course. But there's a lot of schemed offenses where the play call is essentially a one read play call based on the design of the play and the structure of the play. And so you can function that way at times. I can't give a percentage because that's very much a function of a coach and his scheme. But there's a lot of one read calls in the NFL where the quarterback hits that back foot and the ball comes out. And, so that in and of itself does not mean a guy can't play. Does he need to expand on that? Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't mean you can't put him out there ever.
Greg, when you watched him with the RPOs and everything that they were doing with him, was he super explosive as a runner? Like, what kind of runner is he out of these formations?
He's a different kind of runner. Like, he's not a Lamar Jackson type runner because he's a different body type. I mean, he's got a big body, as you know. Yeah. He's only 6'1" and he's over 220 pounds. So he's a little bit of a power runner. I think that, when you see him run, you see him, I don't want to say he's like, a fullback, but I mean, he's just a more powerful guy. Now, he still has some explosive traits as a runner, but he's a different kind of runner. He's not a, I'm trying to think of the right word. He's not an accelerator in that sense. We saw it this week. He can run and he's big, but he's not that kind of, loose hipped Zuzu kind of runner. He's not a shake and bake runner.
Right. Gotcha.
Greg, when you went and watched his college tape, how much did you look at what he did at Oklahoma versus what he did at Alabama? Because I imagine that their offenses were not carbon copies of each other.
To be honest, just in the name of disclosure, I did not watch him at Alabama because he didn't really play much his last year there. And I watched, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 games, and then all CD Lamb pass targets. So I probably, when all said and done, watched 300 dropbacks. Okay. At Oklahoma. And so I did not watch him at Alabama. But I thought, Oklahoma is obviously a very, very good offense under Lincoln Riley for quarterback efficiency. We've seen that. Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. I mean, it's one of those offenses.
Would you play him, to get him comfortable, would you play him just mostly in shotgun based on your tape study last year? How would you play him at this level?
Well, right now I would, because that's what he's comfortable with.
Gotcha. Okay.
You're trying, again, the Eagles are still in it. So you're trying to win this game. And I know we will talk more about that on our Inside the Birds pregame show.
Nice.
But,
nice job, by the way.
I'm learning from Geoff,
Great job. Yeah.
as we'll talk more about the specifics, but
Mm-hmm.
they're playing a really tough defense in the Saints. So you want Hurts as comfortable as possible. You want Hurts to have to think as little as possible about what he's doing because the defense is going to be a real challenge.
Right. Let me ask you this, because I know you evaluated all the quarterbacks, right? Herbert, or the top ones, Herbert.
Oh, of course.
Tua.
I probably evaluated 15 or 16.
Sure. And I know you don't necessarily do a ranking, but where did you feel Hurts fell, and how long did you think he would need to coaching up, right, to be a starter in the league?
Well, that gets back to what I said earlier, Geoff. It's not a matter of coaching up per se. You obviously need coaching, but I thought it would start with how you saw him as a quarterback. Because if you saw him as a quarterback where you would have 11, 12 design run calls for him every game, then that's different than saying, well, we're not really going to do much of that and we want him to be able to throw the football. So then it becomes a different deal as to how you coach him. But that would start from day one. We obviously were in a pandemic off season. And clearly, when he was drafted, the thought was Carson Wentz is the starter. He was a guy who was an MVP candidate, not that long ago, and Hurts was not going to play. So I think that all starts with how you see him when you draft him. And the Eagles did not see him as a starting quarterback this year by any stretch of the imagination. So they were going to run the Carson Wentz offense. And I'm sure that's what was worked on all off season, if it had to be done with Zoom and all that, but that's what they worked on. So now you're starting a little bit, I don't want to say from scratch, but because I'm sure he got some reps over the last number of weeks as it was clear that Carson Wentz was not playing well, but you're still somewhat starting from scratch. So we'll get a feel for how the Eagles see Hurts this week. I guess we don't know the specific answer to that.
Greg, you've mentioned the term many times the last few years. If you watch the matchup show on ESPN, Greg talks about, and so does Matt Bowen, these so-called second reaction plays.
Correct.
Could you explain what that is for our viewers and listeners? Because I think, because you talk about a lot, you're one of the few people who does talk about it. Explain what it means, and is this particular quarterback a guy that makes this type of plays?
Yeah, well, first, let's understand that when things are coached, no quarterback coach or offensive coordinator or head coach rolls the ball out and says, hey, quarterback, your job today is just run around and make plays. That's not the way it works. Things are coached within a structure, within a timing, within a rhythm. And obviously, every single drop back can't play out like that because there's a defense too. So what happens on certain plays is, for whatever reason, the structure can't be executed. So what happens then? Then the quarterback has to move, has to try to make something happen. That's what we call second reaction plays. So there's obviously quarterbacks we know that are very good at that. Russell Wilson's very good at that. We see that Patrick Mahomes is very good at that. Plays that you make outside of the called structure of the play design.
And Greg, 17, I thought Wentz was one of those guys.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah. And he's shown flashes of that at times this season. Now, the belief is in today's NFL, with the sophistication of defenses, the increased speed of defenses, more 6 defensive backs, even some teams playing 7 defensive backs, is the speed of defenses necessitates that your quarterback at some point is going to have to make plays outside the structure of the play call. And Jalen Hurts certainly is capable of that as a runner and as a thrower.
I think what's fascinating here, Greg, the way you describe, what he can do is in 1 week of being the starter, how they cater the offense to the quarterback. Monday and Tuesday.
We'll find that out, Geoff.
Yeah, it's not a lot of time, right? Monday and Tuesday, you can't even be there. You're only through Zoom. So we're really talking about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's 3 days to have him ready to start against the number 1 defense in the league.
Right. But everybody has to remember that every playbook has hundreds of pages. So they have calls in there. It's not like all of a sudden they have to think, okay, what are we going to do this week? That's in the playbook. It's just now they're going to different parts of it. When he came in last week, they were behind. It wasn't a game plan for Jalen Hurts. It was, hey, we're still trying to win this game. So now we're going to, we have to move the ball. We can't build up a game plan. They didn't have enough time to do that. They didn't have enough time to develop concepts and see how the defense reacted.
Excellent. All right. You can catch Greg, of course, not only on Inside the Birds, our pregame show, but also ESPN's NFL matchup show. And, of course, he's the senior producer at NFL Films. So there will be a lot more Greg Cosell here coming up Sunday during our pregame show, which will be 10 a.m. Again at Pino's Palette in Cherry Hill. We will start at 10 a.m. We will break down this Eagles game against, yikes, the New Orleans Saints with Jalen Hurts making his starting debut. Greg, thanks for joining us again. Talk to you Sunday.
Hey, just tell Caplan to go easy on the wine.
The morning wine? All right, but I can't promise that I will.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. All right, you've been watching Inside the Birds TV. Adam Caplan, Geoff Mosher. We'll catch you all on the next episode. Thanks.